Hey everybody, it's me. It's your old buddy Steve Simonson, and guess what? Happy New Year. That's what. I just wanted to take a minute and share a couple thoughts about this 2022 start of the year. So it depends on when you're listening to this. If it's sometime in 2023 or beyond, it may not sound as salient as it should for those living in the present. But I do want to share that there are things happening around the world that I'm paying attention to. And those are the types of issues and topics that I'm going to focus on for Awesomers, at least for the near term. The truth is, I was excited in December, took a little time off, and said, I'm gonna slide some Awesomers episodes in, and I even have a list of episodes and some topics to be done. But some of these issues that I referred to a moment ago are consuming my spare time. And since Awesomers is a lovely hobby and wonderful community and so forth, it can't be my number one priority. My number one priority has to be how do we keep products moving from here to there, and how do we keep processes moving as well as certain things break. So this goes beyond and kind of way beyond just supply chain. So the most obvious thing that I've been talking about the last few months is the supply chain and how we're trying to deal with it as a company. And the word "I" is more like we, the royal we, me and my team. The That in itself is kind of in one container beyond just the gosh shipping costs more tactical problem, or raw materials cost more tactical problem, or things are taking longer tactical problem, right? All of these tactical things are like in the old days, the E-Myth book talked about putting out fires, right? And often entrepreneurs are great firefighters. So we can just sit there and put out fires all day forever, or we can figure out, hey, how do you prevent one of those fires, or maybe 10 of those fires, or more. So that means you have to fly up to that strategic level. And strategy is where a lot of people get confused because they think changing a tactic is a strategic shift, right? And people use these words interchangeably. And listen, I'll be honest, I don't know nothing about nothing, as each and every one of you should know. So maybe I'm wrong about these, but here's my own interpretation of strategy and tactics, and I think it's helpful anyway to apply this context in whatever way it works for you in your home. So tactical is the today, the how, the all of the details about getting things done day to day, the doing it, as the E-Myth would say. The strategy is, why are we doing it? Why does it need done to begin with? Right? There are many things that your company may do, certainly many companies I've encountered, they do for no reason. They do it because they always done it. And perhaps there is a strategic input at some point, but now it's a tactical exercise that produces no benefit. So I want you guys to take a look at that. What are the things that your team are doing on a day-to-day basis or weekly basis, any kind of repetitive situation that maybe they don't need to do. Those That's a strategic level question. It's like, what are we doing that we don't need to do? And more importantly, at least right now, is what do we do as a reaction that will be a long-term solution to some of the global supply chain issues that we see. And it's beyond supply chain at this stage, as I predicted it would be. For those keeping score at home, back in September, I said, hey, we did an episode. Excuse me, I apologize for everybody. We did an episode, and I said, I think it was with Seller Sessions, and I said, guess what? We're about to hit COVID Part 2, the sequel. And if you hated the first one, you're really going to hate the second one. And we've seen just a constant regurgitation of the COVID nightmares that we've all been living, and depends on where you are and what your apparently political leanings. That has something to do with your healthcare these days. I'm just a very simple libertarian type of fellow, and goes, stop telling me what to do. I'll make decisions for myself, for my family, and you do that, and everybody will get better faster, instead of having the nanny state protect me. In fact, they're quite incompetent in general. Governments are largely incompetent, and they continue to demonstrate that incompetence, whichever political side of the aisle you're on, whichever country you're in. That incompetence knows no bounds. So it doesn't matter which side of the kind of political spectrum you may reside in. This pathogen doesn't care, right? The COVID is not going to be stopped. And I've said as much, both at the $1 Billion Seller Summit, the Seller Sessions in London, and then in the Wizards of Ecom down in Florida, and even on some podcasts here. And I don't share that or reflect on that to show how prescient that I am, or do I? I just share it to remind you that a lot of these patterns they lead to a certain place that's quite predictable. And that's what strategy is. Strategy is like, where are things going? And then what do we do about what we expect to happen? And people make some assumptions or some bets, or however you want to think of strategic kind of planning, that where you don't know what the outcome is, right? Your strategy can't be based on what happened last year, because things are different, right? Prices are different. I've been talking about inflation for over a year, and you hear terms like transitory inflation in the United States. The only thing that is transit about it is it's going to run you over again and again every month. And there are financial considerations related to inflation that you should be making as a business, as a person, etc. And those are the types of things that I'll be focused on and be talking about with the Empowery Cooperative. And by the way, here's a good time, everybody. I want you to go over to empowery.com. That's the new platform for the Empowery Cooperative. And there's when you're not signed in, when you're not logged in, there's a little button in the far upper right that says sign up. It's a little blue button. You click that and you sign up, and at least you get a little further access into some of the additional information. Members, which there's a $0 sign up method for members. Become a member. I encourage you to do the one that costs some money, so the co-op's got a little walking around money. But I want you to join that, and I want you to be a part of it, because that's where I'm going to share some of my deepest insights. Awesomers is going to become more and more about the highlights and the kind of general topics. But Empowery, I'm going to dedicate more of my kind of in-depth analysis. And I just did one of these here recently for Empowery, a couple of them actually. And I'm intending that they're helpful. You can be the judge if you're a part of that. So go to empowery.com. Again, they don't pay me. I pay in, right? I'm a volunteer as a nonprofit member-owned cooperative. It's dedicated to kind of helping you. And if you're there and you help the co-op, and then we each do our part, everybody will win. That is a strategic win. So just to loop back, and today's not intended to be a giant episode, but tactics are the how, and the who, and so forth. The why is up at that strategic level. And my strategic kind of objectives and kind of orientation towards what I think the future is changing. And so we're having to hire some people, and we're having to, change some strategic, kind of inputs that we didn't expect to change. And all of that means investment, where I'm betting that these things will come true. Now, I think I should give just the disclaimer that says you don't have to bet the farm on every single thing, right? If you hear that this new, Elon Musk, crypto coin named after his shoelaces is going to be the next big hit, you don't bet the farm on that, right? So when I when I start a year or when I am doing strategic planning, I say, what are the biggest factors that are going to impact us? And just this is not an inclusive list or all inclusive list, but here are some of the things that are on my mind. Raw materials are still under pressure cost wise. China, ironically, has is struggling to get enough business. Now, I recognize that they just had record exports in Q4 of last year or of 2021, record levels of exports. So if you look at that, you go, oh, well, then China must be fine. But there are many other second level data points that show, yes, well, last year was a record, and a lot of that came in the first part of the year. If you actually look at December, its rate of growth was lower than the earlier part of the year, and that deceleration is happening in an unbelievably powerful way. I love to interact with people all over the world. So I'm not pro one country or down on another country. I'm pro keeping the business afloat. And I do think that China has some additional risks than whereas it didn't have those risks, let's say 3 or 4 years ago. And those risks are not lowering or reducing their profile, they're increasing. For anybody who doesn't understand this and said, well, with Trump gone, it should get easier. Biden is doubling down on the Trump stuff and may increase some of the Trump stuff. And by the way, from a policy perspective, it's probably a reasonable thing and a fair thing for the U.S. to put in place certain aspects of these deals. So whether you like Trump or Biden or neither or both, these things are kind of economic realities, and they don't sit well with China. So China's kind of fighting back, and all of this is in a backdrop of kind of global tumult and unrest, which I will talk about in a future episode here pretty soon. So this strategy and tactics rundown is really important, and so I want you to think about the tactical level things that you or your people are doing, and then the strategy of why you're doing those things and where you're going for 2022. The strategic objective you have should be very easy to articulate. It should be 1 or 2 or 3 sentences. It should involve some measurable things, like my strategic objective in 5 years is to be, whatever you want it to be, $1 million company, $1 billion company, it doesn't matter, but that's a strategic objective. Right. And so part of the company why is, well, because we're marching up that mountain, whether it's $1 million mountain or $1 billion mountain, it doesn't matter. We're going up the hill. Another strategic thing might be, and we're going to maintain a margin of, an EBITDA or a net margin of 20%. So there we go. There's another little side hill right next to the big mountain. So you got revenue mountain, you got margin hill, and then you may have, and we're going to do it at a, rate of $1 million per employee, right? Some metric that says, well, gosh, if I just hire 1,000 people, maybe I can do these things. But that's not a very good ratio for you to consider. So whatever your ratio is, whether it's 1,000 per employee of production per year, I'm talking about revenue wise, or it's 10 million per employee, it doesn't matter. There's some spectrum that may be beneficial to you. And you go, okay, well, that's how we're going to do it. We're going to, revenue, margin, and, some sort of additional ratio or two that say that's how we know we're doing it well. That's a strategic objective. And then you set these underlying strategies of, well, that means we need to launch 5 more products. They need to be in these categories. We're going to buy them from this country. We're going to maintain, this supply chain. We're going to switch it from this type of steel to this kind of aluminum because of, raw materials. It's going to enhance the quality, but it's going to decrease the cost. Like all of these things are kind of strategic level thinking. And then, by the way, you may say some of those things, and not know how to do it yet. That's the tactical. Now let's go figure it out. You can't say things that are blatantly not going to work, but that should be clear to you. So back in September, I said, here's what's going to happen. There's going to be again difficulty in the world. There's going to be Well, I'll just save some of these insights for another episode. But I do want to let you guys know. I think every day I should get on there and do an Awesomers recording, and then I'm either too busy or I just simply run out of gas, and it's like, what are you gonna do? You can't do it all. So my apologies, but I don't feel super guilty. I just want you guys to know that I do value the community, and when I see people all over the world and they come up to me and they're like, "Hey, I listen to Awesomers and I appreciate it." That makes me happy. I go, "Good. Well, my purpose of this remains intact." And so you guys can let me know. By the way, we have an Awesomers group or forum over at empowery.com, and that's where we're going to start driving our engagement. Social media is useless, and we may even do not useless. Social media is toxic. Social media is not helpful, and I don't want to be complicit with them productizing you and me and all of us for their own, really, in many ways, quite nefarious purposes. Making money itself is not nefarious, but the levels of effort they're going to manipulate our behaviors, our how we see the world is that's nefarious for sure. And maybe we'll talk about that in the future as well. So anyway, thanks everybody. Really appreciate all of you. Happy New Year. And until next time, bye-bye.